All right, guys. Today we're going to be talking about 11.2 Death Knight. And if you haven't been staying up to date, Death Knight is getting a lot of changes going into 11.2. And I've seen a lot of other classes with their raid buffs up in their ivory towers saying, why is Death Knight getting so many changes? And meanwhile, my steak is too juicy and my lobster is too buttery. Why am I not getting these changes? Listen, Death Knight has been stuck mechanically in a very old place for a while. And I think Blizzard really stepped up in 11.2 to modernize some of this, especially for Frost. But my previous videos, I spent some time going through the patch notes and sort of talking about design-wise what the changes were and, what the impact was going to be. But now that I've had more time on the PTR, I feel like I can give some targeted feedback in these last couple tuning passes before the season starts. So I'm going to go ahead and timestamp it for each spec, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and start off with Blood. And for Blood, you may be noticing we have a point. So this is because Abomination's Limb was removed. So Abomination's Limb was removed because Blizzard says that Death Grip is Death Knight's raid buff, and because of this, they didn't want anything to be more powerful or overshadow it. It would be tough to balance, so they just removed it. Now, I feel the need to say this. Death Grip is not a raid buff. Death Grip is a utility tool in the same way that something like Stampeding Roar is a utility tool. It's really good in some situations, and it can be almost mandatory in some situations, but it is not useful in every situation. It is not a constant buff in the same way that something like versatility, attack power, you name it, right? So Death Grip is not a raid buff. So removing Abomination's Limb is a huge problem for Blood. Blood already struggles a bit in Mythic Plus, comparative to some of the meta tanks like Vengeance, because they do not have the same level of AoE stops. So removing one of these stops that was gripping people in, one of these sort of mob control tools, is a big blow to Blood. Blood is very fun to play. It's a really, really fun gameplay loop. I really enjoy the core gameplay of Blood. I think like Blood is in a good spot mechanically. The only problem is it does not have the same level of tools as the other tanks. And so what I think they could do in order to fix this is this ability right here, Gorfine's Grasp, as well as Tightening Grasp, which is right below it. I think that these tools should be I would say much more accessible, very easily accessible. Blood needs some form of AoE stop. Gorfine's Grasp and Tightening Grasp would be perfect for it. The problem why people don't take it right now is you have to sacrifice really good talents because of the location of these two talents on the tree. This puts Blood in a situation where it does not have a lot of build diversity. Like I said, I love the way it plays. It plays really well, but it just gets outshined. It doesn't really bring anything that the other tanks do. It doesn't have a raid buff, it doesn't have the same mob control, and even if the Blood plays really, really well, it just doesn't have the same group utility. I think this would be a good change for Blood. All right, guys, next we're going to talk about Frost. And for Frost, I actually don't have a lot of feedback. Frost feels really fun to play. It's really, really fun. I really enjoy it right now. I think it added some extra nuance to it, while not being overly complicated. It's very fun. It's just good. It's just good. But now is the time to give feedback. So I'm being really nitpicky here, and I understand that. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the new talents. So Frost Reaper, this sounds like it would be an AoE ability because it tethers souls of nearby targets, but it actually tethers the target that you're hitting as well. That plus the extra obliterate damage, it ends up being used in single target rather than AoE. It could also be used in maybe a boss fight with very, very infrequent ad spawns, but it's very cool. The animation is very cool. The only problem is it's a bit hard to see. You get these blue tethers that look kind of similar to the. It's like a dark version of the Paladin hero tree that has the gold beams coming out. I love the design. I love where they went with it. The only problem is it's not always very obvious. So people are going to end up using a weak aura to track this, I think. Blizzard, if you're listening, I think you should do some sort of audio cue or visual cue for it. That's more obvious because with all the other effects going out, sometimes it gets missed. And when it gets missed, people are going to make a weak aura. We're moving away from weak auras, was the announcement that Blizzard gave. So I think that would be a good solution. A bit of numbers tuning. Frostbane, we don't really take this right now. It's a new talent. It's very good. It's very cool. But it just kind of gets outshined by Breath. We end up running Breath in both single target and Mythic Plus on the PTR right now. And because of that, it's a new talent. I think it should be kind of strong. I think I think it should be maybe tuned up a little bit to be more competitive in AoE. But really, Breath is a powerhouse. Breath feels a lot better to use right now. I think they kind of landed in a really good spot for it. The only problem is that it is so strong. it's so strong. Frostbane will really have to be slamming for you to not take Breath the way it is right now. The only feedback that I have for Breath, and I'm being nitpicky here, Blizzard, but you recently updated a bunch of animations, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. I was doing a new dungeon with one of my priest friends, and he was like, "Oh, some of your frost animations are really cool, but what's that one where you're blowing smoke in front of you?" And it was like a knife through the heart, man. It is so old looking, and a lot of the other sort of breath abilities were updated. I know that the Frostworm's Fury, it's like this cool blue fire now. Breath just kind of looks like a white cloud of smoke pushing out in front of you, and it masks all the other cool abilities like Frost Reaper, Frostbane. You can't see any of that because there's just this white cloud of smoke. I think that needs to be updated visually. Again, I know I'm being nitpicky, but now is the time to do it, right? Now is the time to give this sort of feedback because Frost has the focus, and it really hasn't had focus in a while. So I'm sort of shooting a half-court shot right now, okay? So next we're going to go Unholy. So for Unholy, guys, I want you to remember how excited I was when I was talking about Frost. Blizzard promised massive gameplay changes for both Frost and Unholy, and for Frost Death Knight, they absolutely delivered. For Unholy, not so much, okay? For Unholy, it is now the Band-Aid specialization, okay? So Blizzard is not unaware that Unholy has problems, right? People have been complaining about Festering Strike and Festering Wounds for years, If you ask 90% of Unholy players, they're going to tell you they do not like wounds. Remove wounds. So Blizzard threw a Band-Aid on it where you have things like Legion of Souls, Abomination, right, that generate more wounds. So you're not having to press Festering as much. They added things like Festering Scythe. And so these Band-Aid fixes were thrown in. Another example is for Death and Decay. Unholy players were like, we hate using Death and Decay. We hate it for cleaving strikes. In a dynamic mythic environment where we're having to move around, first we got the Band-Aid fix that once Death and Decay is gone, you still get the benefit for a little bit. And then we got Desecrate, which is another Band-Aid fix, okay? This leaves Unholy in a situation where the only Festering Wound is the specialization. All of these Band-Aids need to be taken off, and the wound needs to be healed, okay? Wounds need to be removed. Cleaving Strikes, Death and Decay needs to be removed. It is not fun, and Unholy ends up in the situation where they have to use... they have to do a bunch of chores in order to actually play the game, right? You are not saying, hell yeah, I'm pressing Festering Strike right now. You're not saying, hell yeah, I'm pressing Desecrate right now. These are not fun buttons to press, and these are not fun abilities to manage. The things that are fun, the things that are engaging, are things like this, where when you are getting a death coil, right? A death coil proc, it's summoning a minion. That's cool. That feels cool. When you're, where is it? Where's reaping? There we go. When Soul Reaper goes off, your minion damage is increased. You know, Soul Reaper just popped. Oh, these guys they're gonna get shredded by my ghouls right now. That's so cool. Those are cool mechanics. Festering wounds are not cool mechanics. Desecrate, not cool, right? No one is liking pressing Death and Decay for cleaving strikes. And these band-aids are they're just going to get worse and worse and worse as the game progresses, as other specs get changes. The problem is it's going to feel older and older and older. And I think that while Death Knight has some attention right now, this is stuff that's got to change. As far as from a tuning angle, Grave Mastery, this whole, and Plague Mastery, the critical strike changes. Look, right now, after simming things, Unholy still doesn't like crit. I know what you're trying to solve for, but crit is still not a good stat for Unholy. It's not terrible now, but it's not great. So something to look into. My other feedback is that if wounds are removed, because I know what people are thinking. If we remove wounds and all that stuff, all we are is Death Coil and Clawing Shadows, right? In our core rotation, besides our minions. And so what I think needs to happen is I think that this needs to be replaced with something that functions with your diseases and your pets, right? Because like I said, the fun, engaging things for Unholy are your interactions with your pets, your interactions with your diseases, right? Those sort of things are fun and engaging. So I think something that interacts more talent of, if all these wound talents are removed, right? I think it should be more stuff like that that engages with your pets and your diseases. And this button, Festering Strike, which sucks to press right now, should be what bridges the gap between your pets and your diseases. Whatever mechanic that is, and I am not a game designer, but that should be whatever bridges the gap, okay? Because right now it is completely separate from your pets and it is completely separate from your diseases, right? So the pets end up feeling like fire and forget. The diseases end up feeling like fire and forget. And I think that should be the button that brings them together. It has an interaction with both of them, right? Maybe pressing that increases the attack speed of your pets. And when your pets claw someone with, blood plague, it makes it do more damage. It makes it do more damage. Like something to tie it all together, right? Because wounds is not it. All right, and that is Unholy. All right, guys, and last but not least, I want to talk about two final things, and that is raid buff. Blizzard, Death Knight needs a raid buff. Death Grip is not a raid buff. I've been saying it forever. Give us haste, give us crit, give us anything along those lines. We'll be happy. Finally, pet customization. Blizzard, you did an awesome job of adding some new pets, some new pet skins, but I'd still like to customize them. I'd like to add little, Death Knight blue eyes to this guy if I could instead of the green. I'd love to customize his armor. I'd love to get a Mossworn Ghoul. I want the option to have a little bit of customization. There's so many undead models in the game. We just went to Shadowlands with the Maw and Maldraxxus. Where's the pet customization, man? That is about it as far as feedback. I just want to thank you guys for watching. With the new season coming out, I will be putting out some new content for Mythic Plus, for the new Delve boss, for the raid, for PvP. So if you guys have anything that you want to make sure that I cover that I did not just mention in that list that would be helpful, please just let me know and I'll try to make a video on it. So thanks again for watching and suffer well.